Hey everyone, welcome to The Explainer. Today we're unpacking the intertwined organizational structure of housing and residence life, or as we all know it, HRL. If you've ever found yourself wondering how this massive residential system seamlessly handles everything from community building to super complex room assignments, well, you are definitely in the right place. And here's why mastering this flow is absolutely crucial for you. Understanding this chain of command is literally the ultimate tool to save you time, empower your decisions, and, let's be real, prevent staff burnout. We're going to break down exactly how issues travel, from a simple resident concern all the way up through leadership, and how the team navigates that whole journey from conflict to resolution.
Okay, let's dive right into this. Here's our roadmap for today's explainer. We're kicking things off with 2 departments, 1 team. Then we'll hit solving at the lowest level, the open door policy, what happens when we hit a developmental dead end, that big customer service shift, and finally those rare logistical resolutions.
All right, starting us off is Section 1, 2 departments, 1 team, focusing on the overall HRL structure. So how do 2 distinct departments operate as one? I mean, really think about that for a second. How do 2 entirely separate departments with different directors and completely different daily goals manage to operate as a single unified machine in the residence halls? It takes a ridiculous amount of synergy. And as we look at the structure, you're going to see that it's totally by design. Here's how the actual responsibilities shake out. On one side, you've got residence life. They are intensely focused on the human element, right? Student development, conduct, building that thriving community. Then on the flip side, we have housing operations. They tackle the functional stuff, managing operational systems, complex room assignments, and all the vital logistics. But the real magic, that happens right where these 2 sides overlap. Take the central office front desks, for example. These are run by hosts, housing options, and student tours. Now, these hosts are technically housing operations employees, but they live and work right there in the residence halls, acting as absolutely critical frontline partners to the ResLife team. And this brilliantly illustrates our ultimate goal. Even though there are different specific functions and leadership tracks, the collaboration is so incredibly tight that from the outside looking in, whether it's our students, their parents, or other campus partners, they just see one big, unified department seamlessly handling the whole student experience. Now that we know the players, let's move to Section 2, solving at the lowest level, which is all about frontline empowerment. So the core operational philosophy of HRL is fixing issues at the lowest level. Basically, this means the organization deliberately empowers you, the frontline staff, the RAs, the PCs, and your direct supervisors to handle problems immediately as they pop up. The logic here is simple but extremely effective. The people closest to the students, the ones actually living the situation, are always the best equipped to lead that initial resolution. Let's see how this plays out on the org chart to actually guide our student staff. In halls led by a Residence Life Coordinator, or RLC, there's this vital mentorship layer built right in. The RLC supervises a senior resident assistant, the SRA, who then mentors the student staff. It's like a buffer, where the SRA peer coaches the RAs to resolve floor issues before they ever even hit the RLC's desk. Now, on the other hand, in halls led by residence coordinators, RCs, or graduate residence coordinators, GRCs, they operate with what we call a focused scope of supervision. In those specific buildings, the RC or GRC supervises the student team directly, giving them immediate professional resolution and guidance without that SRA layer. To bring this down to earth, let's run with a scenario for the rest of this explainer. Imagine a stubbornly deadlocked roommate conflict. 2 residents sharing a space, constantly clashing over cleanliness, and, you know it, those classic 3 a.m. alarm clock battles. They are just not getting along. Under our lowest level philosophy, the RA is right there on the front line trying to mediate, getting some solid peer coaching from their SRA or direct guidance from their RC. We'll check back in on our feuding roommates in just a minute, but first, let's pause for Section 3, the open door policy, which acts as our safety net. So the crucial point here is that while the chain of command is super structured, it's definitely not an impenetrable wall. The open door policy is a vital safety net for everyone. If any staff member brings a concern directly to leadership, they follow a very specific 3-step framework. Step 1, listen. They create a supportive space for you to just be heard. Step 2, redirect. If the issue really can and should be handled by a direct supervisor, they empower the staff member by sending it back down the chain. Or Step 3, resolve. If the issue is super urgent or impacts the broader department, leadership steps in and resolves it directly. Now you might be wondering, why redirect at all? Why not just let leadership fix everything at the top? Well, redirecting issues back to the proper chain is essential for a few massive reasons. First off, it ensures equity and balance in workloads so no single person is drowning in problems. Second, it drives sustained success by cutting down on staffing instability and burnout. And honestly, most importantly, it promotes professional growth. For an SRA, learning to independently resolve peer-level concerns is a huge, critical step in their professional development pipeline.
All right, back to our scenario in Section 4, the developmental dead end and the limits of teachable moments. Now, what's really interesting about this slide is this fascinating pivot point, the developmental dead end. You see, Rest Life always approaches issues through a student development lens. Every conflict, no matter how messy, is a teachable moment. But what happens when a student repeatedly refuses to engage? They just don't want to learn, and they blatantly refuse to follow community standards or work things out. When that happens, the conflict shifts from being a growth opportunity to a strict operational necessity.
Looking back at our stubborn roommates with their 3 a.m. alarms, the hall staff has literally tried everything. The RA mediated multiple times. The SRA peer coached the RA on brand new strategies. The RLC even stepped in with formal behavioral contracts. But one roommate is just flat out refusing to budge or engage in the process. At this point, the teachable moment is officially over. Those developmental tools are completely exhausted, which triggers an unavoidable escalation. Which brings us right to Section 5, the customer service shift, a major pivot for the department.
Once we hit that developmental dead end, the entire organization's mindset fundamentally changes. Under the Residence Life lens, led by Director Dr. Craig Seeger, the focus is entirely on student growth and community. But when a student just won't grow, the issue gets handed over to the Housing Operations lens, led by Director Heather Romine and Associate Director Melanie Biggs. And wow, does the approach shift here. It flips right to customer service. The question changes from how can the student grow to how do we resolve this contractual or logistical issue as fast and efficiently as possible. The student is now treated firmly as a client of the housing system.
But hold on, this shift isn't just some easy shortcut to bail on a tough situation. For hall staff to officially transfer our stubborn roommate conflict to Melanie Biggs' team, they have to execute a totally clean handoff. They must prove they've exhausted all developmental options. They have to thoroughly document every single step they took and clearly explain exactly why they hit a dead end. And throughout this whole handoff, both departments have to maintain a unified front so the student experiences one seamless process. This is absolutely key to keeping the institution's operations stable. So, how does housing operations actually fix the problem once they take the reins? Let's check out Section 6, Rare Logistical Resolutions and Administrative Tools.
Let's move to and see how this builds into actionable administrative solutions. Most of the time, the fix is a physical room change. Now, if the move is within the same building, the hall staff actually manages those building-specific assignments themselves. But for our stubbornly deadlocked roommates who have burned through all local resources, they probably need a totally fresh start in a completely new environment. And that means an intercomplex change. These larger administrative moves are handled specifically by assignment coordinators, Nakia Baxter and Emily Richards. They use their systemic oversight to relocate the student across entirely different residence halls.
Take a look at the massive slice of the pie here. That represents mediated resolutions handled by you, right at the lowest level. Then we have a much more moderate slice that requires those administrative room changes we just talked about. But look closely at that microscopic slice. That tiny one is for lease cancellations. It is so vital to emphasize this. Lease cancellation is the absolute last resort. The primary goal of both Residence Life and housing operations every single day is to keep students successfully housed, safe, and engaged with the university community. Canceling a lease only ever happens in the most exceptional, severe circumstances, and only after every single developmental, behavioral, and logistical avenue has been totally 100% exhausted. Well, we've mapped the entire journey, from the RA on the floor listening to a resident, all the way to the assignment coordinators moving them across campus. From the human element of development straight through to the functional logistics of housing contracts. Understanding this intertwined chain of command equips you to calmly and effectively handle literally any situation that comes your way. So the final question I'm leaving you with today is this. With this powerful, integrated framework in your back pocket, are you ready to guide your residents to a successful resolution? Thank you so much for joining me for this explainer, and keep building those amazing communities.